Hi. So with the Switch 2 finally getting its footing, plus the 3DS now having been 2 generations ago, and also the Switch 2 having mouse controls, I think now is a better time than ever for 3DS port speculation. And also there was that weird dual screen patent that keeps resurfacing. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, what is Nintendo really trying to do here exactly? I don't understand this at all. Anyway, we're going to cover some 3DS games, but they're not all necessarily going to be about like straight up ports. Maybe game franchises that got stuck on the 3DS, maybe they could benefit from a remake or a simple HD remaster. I'm also going to be a little bit picky as well. Games like Animal Crossing New Leaf, I feel Nintendo would have rather let the studio make a new game with influences of the old games like New Leaf rather than just a port of New Leaf, you know? But games like Fire Emblem, which we'll get to, are more likely to port or remake an old game, if any of this makes sense. Anyway, let's discuss. I feel like 2017 games were just doomed to fail on the Switch, the 3DS, because these released while the Switch was already out or was about to come out, or like people already knew about the Switch when these came out. Some of these games were saved from death, like Monster Hunter Stories or Miitopia, but games like Ever Oasis or like Samus Returns, there was a Style Savvy game in there, and Fire Emblem Echoes, these were all doomed to fail. I don't have a physical copy of this, but we're going to talk about Samus Returns first. Metroid Samus Returns, I feel, isn't super likely to come to the Switch 2 anytime soon, but I do see it eventually getting an HD port in an effort to maybe bring every big-ish Metroid game to the system. I mean, we already have a ton of Metroid games on the Switch already. If I'm remembering correctly, the only Metroid games that we don't have on Switch are Samus Returns and Other M, which is, oh man, and also every Prime game between 1 and 4. Maybe if Prime 4 does a bit better than the average Metroid game, I can see Nintendo maybe wanting to get the remaining games on there. I don't know, but I do think this game is a game that could get an HD remaster or a simple HD port with a fixed UI for a single screen. I think the single screen is what really puts the nail in the coffin for a few 3DS games, maybe early 3DS games. Definitely not later ones, though. So I don't even know why I brought that up, because Samus Returns is a later 3DS game, and it was made by the Dread people, as we all know. So they are fully capable of porting it if given the task. And we all love Samus Returns. Samus Returns is a very solid Metroid game. Metroid remake, my fault. I never beat it because I'm really fucking terrible at that genre of game, but I loved it. I loved it so much. It was definitely a really cool visual feat. It was really cool visually. I liked seeing it on my 3DS and seeing them progress from the visuals of Samus Returns to Dread just was like amazing. I would love to see Samus Returns in a more crispy, crunchy style, you know what I mean? You know what game we didn't really love though? Federation Force. Is it still normal to hate on Federation Force? I feel like not a lot of people hate it anymore now that, you know. With Samus Returns, I feel like it could just need a couple touch-ups and then boom, you're done. Ship it off. $80. But Federation Force, I feel, could just be so much more on a home console. It's already a hot take that I'm fucking talking about Federation Force, but hot take, I feel like Federation Force could make a comeback, but I'm gonna be a little picky about it. While I'm making this video, Prime 4 isn't out yet. It comes out in a few months, which is crazy that I can even be like, oh, we have a release date for Prime 4, because I've not been able to say that for a fucking long time. But it comes out in a few months, so this probably isn't gonna be really relevant after it releases. But in a perfect world, to me, Federation Force would make a comeback as a side mode or a side campaign in a Prime game. Something that you can do to take a break from the main campaign if you still want a Prime style game. I imagine a Federation Force comeback having the regular Prime art style. We play as the Federation soldiers in the style you see them as in Prime 4 or whatever Prime game will be there at the time, because fingers crossed, Prime 4 is not the end. I really want it so we can see what the Federation is up to during the events of the main campaign that we already played through as Samus's point of view, or just the main campaign in general. The 3DS game already sort of follows that. You're seeing what they're up to while Samus is out there saving the world. But from a quick Google search. It actually takes place after Prime 3. So it's not really any events that we like already knew of. I think it just would be cool to play as a Federation soldier during the events you already know from Samus's point of view. So you can be playing the game and overhear from maybe another soldier and they're saying something like, oh, did you hear Samus just did this and this? Something like that. Of course, make it multiplayer, maybe even give it some fun little online events so while you're done with the Prime campaign, you still have things to do online. Or even if it's too ambitious for a Prime game, just make it its own game. I feel like the Metroid fans have been fed enough this time around to not entirely despise the existence of a game like this during a reveal. Even as its own game, I think Federation Force could have been a fun multiplayer shooter for Nintendo, and it could have been a nice, easier entry point for people to get into the series. That is a little bit iffy because, you know, like, it's not exactly a Metroid game and it's not exactly a Prime game. It's more just a Prime looking game, and it's barely even a Prime looking game, let's be real. But anyway, keep the stuff where you can hear about like what Samus is up to. Maybe it'll pique people's interests who didn't even play the Prime game if it was a separate game. Maybe they'd be like, oh, I wonder what Samus is up to, and they'd get a Prime game. I don't know, maybe this is too ambitious for a spin-off of a spin-off game, but I always loved the idea of seeing side characters' point of views in games or just any media. But in the end, I think Federation Force should have just been released on home consoles to begin with, and it also should not have had that like chibi art style, and obviously it came out at a terrible time, but I think Federation Force could have some potential in there. We need to move on. Kid Icarus Uprising is a very anticipated one, especially with mouse controls being present, it's become a talking point recently. I believe they would remake Uprising before making a new entry. Uprising was a game that really used everything the 3DS could offer. I mean, obviously, it was a launch title, which makes it a bit tricky to imagine it all on one screen, but the fact that the bottom screen is just as important of a visual thing as the top screen makes it a little bit tricky. They could go the route that they took with Smash Brothers and shrink down the sprites and throw them in the middle of the screen. But I feel like that could make it a little bit cluttered, especially because there's so many more elements on the bottom screen that you'd have to shove up there. But I don't see them getting rid of these sprites either because they're such a big part of the experience, in my opinion. This game would need a full-on remake. Let's be honest. I think putting everything on one screen and tweaking the controls for a controller are like the only things that really need to happen. The multiplayer too was already so good. Flawless. Give it to me. I'd love to see them expand on it, especially since there should be controller support, so it would play a lot more like a traditional third-person shooter. Hopefully. I'm a sucker for Nintendo shooters, what can I say? I feel like Uprising is 100% a game that I'd love to replay on the big screen, so I hope this is something we can get in the future. I really hope that it's at least in the talks, because as I'm recording this, Kirby Air Ride is also about to come out, so Sakurai definitely has his hand full there, but like, it would be so awesome, so cool if we got to see it, you know what I mean? The Fire Emblem games, ooh. I feel, right, that Fire Emblem Awakening could be a really good remake, while Echoes could be a really good HD remaster. Fates I'm a little iffy on, because technically it's 3 games, and also it's Fates. I love Fates. I grew up with Awakening and Fates as my introduction to the series, so like I don't hate Fates for nostalgic purposes. I was like a teenager playing Fates. Ooh. But in hindsight, I think these 2 games are just slightly more superior to Fates. In my opinion. Maybe that can get its own video. I don't know. Anyway, Fire Emblem Awakening is the game that revived the Fire Emblem franchise from death. And it's getting pretty old if we really think about it. 2012. Is it 2012 or 2011? Who gives a shit? It's fucking old. I think a remake with full voice acting would go crazy with this game, and Fire Emblem has already a pretty strong footing with games that use one screen now, so I don't really think there's much I'd change. Also, I mean, it's been on one screen for a while. I don't know why I said now. I don't know. I mean, if it's a remake, I think the character models could use some touch-ups, and while not necessary, I can see them completely redoing the sprite work too. I do think that other Fire Emblem games in the franchise deserve a remake before Awakening. Don't get it twisted. But I wouldn't be surprised if Awakening ended up getting a part of a port. I wouldn't be surprised if Fire Emblem Awakening ended up getting a port in the future due to how popular it is. I mean, if you didn't see, my reactions to Fortune's Weave was immediately, is this Fire Emblem? Because I thought it was actually Awakening and not a new entry. I'm nervous. Fire Emblem? No, it can't be. It wouldn't be. Is it? Is it? No, it can't be. It can't be. Is it Fire Emblem? No, it's not. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. That was crazy. Similar to Awakening, I think Echoes doesn't really need much. Echoes is tied with Three Houses as my favorite of the modern Fire Emblem games, and I absolutely think they nailed the 3DS style of games with this entry. The art direction is my personal favorite out of any of the games. I loved the sketchy sprites and the overall aesthetic. It's just gorgeous to me. This game is so unique, and it is a remake, so I don't think remaking a remake is entirely necessary. But I do think this game deserves an HD remaster because just like other freaking games, this is a 2017 release, which means nobody played it besides like diehard Fire Emblem fans. I will literally never forget when I picked up this game at GameStop and my mom was like, you have a Switch, why did you get this one? Or why are you still using your 3DS? And I was like, you don't understand! It's Fire Emblem Echoes! Anyway, I desperately just need to see this game come back in some way. I don't think enough people talk about this. Kirby's Epic Yarn. This honestly makes no sense to me. Why was this even on the 3DS? It could have been a multi-platform release, and I know that 2017 was an iffy time for Nintendo. They were unsure if the Switch was even gonna be a success. So they were still pushing good content out on the 3DS, and oh boy did they push good content out. But I do think that Kirby's Epic Yarn specifically could have been a multi-platform release. It is a remake, or is it even a remake? I feel like it's more of a remaster, but it's kind of iffy because of, I don't know, Kirby. But again, this is a late 3DS release, so it's pretty much entirely on the top screen, and there's no use for the touch screen. I think we should just get an Epic Yarn port, because it should have been on the Switch to begin with. Oh boy. Weirdly enough, I'm not sure why, but this feels like a game Nintendo would randomly revive and sell for like $40. Codename Steam. Oh my god. This is a weird game, but I feel like it had potential. I don't have much to say about Codename Steam, but I feel like this is just an entry that would come up in a direct and be like a shadow drop just for no fucking reason. I mean, it might be a weird release, but you know, I liked the art style. Did I buy it because it had Fire Emblem amiibo support? Yes. And I thought that the gameplay looked pretty cool. I mean, I feel like it had potential. I never beat it because I got bored. But it was visually interesting enough to intrigue me at least. I feel like they'd run that exact thing back, you know what I mean? It would show up in a direct. People would be like, what the fuck is this? Oh my god, it's Codename Steam. Who wanted a Codename Steam port? Why, of all things, did they decide to bring back Codename Steam? Is that Abraham Lincoln? And then it would come up with like, releasing later today, and people would be like, well, you know, I never played Codename Steam on the 3DS, maybe I'll pick that up. And then a total of 5 people will pick it up. And maybe they'll like it. Maybe they will tweak it. Or maybe they'll just tweak. I don't know. Anyway, let's get a bit less popular with entries for a moment and mention Moon Chronicles. There are a lot of 3D shooters that I think have gone under the radar due to 3DS shooters just being a weird thing to do. But Moon Chronicles is so insanely fun. If you don't know anything about Moon Chronicles, right? It's an episodic sci-fi shooter. Sort of reminds me of Metroid Prime Hunters visually. It's actually a remake of the DS game, so I don't know how likely another remake of a remake will be, but it's also generations ago, if you get it. And also, Moon on the DS was a very highly praised DS game. I don't know, it's getting kind of old, so I feel like maybe an HD remaster wouldn't be too out of reach. Honestly, I'm a fan of the graphics the way they are as well. So if they just make it HD, I really wouldn't mind. I mean, if Ironfall Invasion could survive off of the 3DS, I think Moon Chronicles really could. Liberation Maiden is another not as popular one, but does anyone even remember this game? It got a mobile port and a Japan-only sequel, but this game was pretty cool. Liberation Maiden is a fully voice-acted top-down shooter, and I freaking loved this when I first played it. I was also like 12, so I don't really remember it. I feel like this, with mouse controls, could be a really cool Switch 2 release. Also, the soundtrack for this game was just freaking awesome. Anyway, I don't really remember this game, but I feel like it should be on here, you know what I mean? There were definitely some gems that I found on the eShop when I was younger that I don't remember, but Liberation Maiden and Moon Chronicles were definitely one of them, or two of them. What? Some of them. A beautiful duo. Anyway, Ever Oasis was another 2017 3DS release that nobody played or talked about. It was actually a new IP by Nintendo, and I really don't get why this was on the 3DS. Like, I'm really trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, you know, like, if the Switch failed, we would have had Fire Emblem, Kirby, and Ever Oasis. Like, I just feel like if you're releasing a new IP and you have a new console coming out, wouldn't it have come out on the new console? This game was so robbed. This game even just looks amazing for a 3DS game. Like, this thing was pushing the 3DS to its limits. You would have thought that this was a new 3DS only game, the way that this just looked so good. It has like Zelda style dungeons as well as a bit of a town builder thing going on. And I just love the art direction. I'm not usually a fan of like kind of chibi style games as much as I was when I was younger, but this game is so vibrant and it pops out so much, and the art is beautiful. The world in this game is just so nice to look at, and I love it. I feel like this could have been such a big summer hit if it wasn't on the 3DS. It has like a bit of a cozy-ish vibe with a bit of action, kind of like Fantasy Life. But I think this game would just greatly benefit from an HD remaster rather than a full remake, but I would take a remake. Hell, I'd even take another entry. But I feel like Nintendo, in an attempt to even garner interest in that, would realistically just give it a port. A port. I don't know why I fully emphasize that. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of later 3DS games only really used the bottom screen for like a map or some extra buttons they didn't want to put on the top screen. So I feel like the dual screen debacle would not actually be a thing in this game. I don't know. It just has that Nintendo charm and it's freaking cool. It's like, I hate when Nintendo, oh my god. Can we talk about how Nintendo just randomly drops new IPs on the most obscure fucking platform? Like, the 3DS was not obscure, but at the time it might have well as been. It's like the 3DS equivalent of Dragalia Lost. Yeah, I went there. Anyway, I would happily be one of 3 fans that buy Ever Oasis if it ever comes back. I love this game. I love this game to death. Please, Nintendo, give me Ever Oasis. This would not be a toasty video if I didn't bring up my favorite business management simulator in which I beef with everybody in this game. Style Savvy. I actually think that Style Savvy could really benefit from a new game, especially if it takes influence from previous games. And I know Fashion Dreamer exists, but we don't talk about Fashion Dreamer here. Or actually, let's get into why there actually hasn't been a Style Savvy game in a fucking millennium. So, I believe, and I might have to research this in case I'm wrong, the Style Savvy games are owned by Nintendo, but they're developed by Sin Sophia. And the last game came out in 2017, so we all know how that went. And if I had to guess, it just wasn't popular, like, at all. I mean, I didn't even know about it. It didn't even get a physical release. If it did, it was probably in Japan, and that was it. And I assume for money purposes, right, they just can't make a new Style Savvy game because they're not as popular. And, you know, they'd have to go up to Big Man Nintendo and be like, hey, we want a new Style Savvy game. And they would probably, if they didn't already, just say no. Fashion Dreamer was born, and you can really see the Style Savvy inspiration flowing through the studio. But what made Style Savvy so charming was the business management, the drama you can have with your customers, decorating your shop, working 4 jobs at once, but like it's fun because it's cute. And Fashion Dreamer was literally just the fashion part of the game. And while there is an audience for that, it is definitely not what people hoped for in a new game by Sophia. And Sophia is working on another fashion game, but it is not clear if it's going to be even translated. And it is story-based, which is awesome. You know, we wanted a new story-based thing in there too. Style Savvy has a story, but again, it doesn't have the same vibe as Style Savvy. To me, even like I want another studio to even do this. If they can't make a new Style Savvy or even a game similar to it, I would buy like 1,000 copies of a spiritual successor to Style Savvy that is all about running your own business, owning a boutique, working at a hair salon, working at a makeup shop, going to fashion shows, winning fashion shows, going shopping all the time, designing your own clothes, and give it a dramatic story and give you that freaking like beef with customers. Cause like I loved how modern Style Savvy was, because their new game is obviously not in like freaking New York style settings. And I loved the fashion part of it. Obviously, it is primarily a fashion game, but there was just so much more about the Style Savvy games that just made it appealing to me. Because, like, you are a social media star, like Fashion Dreamer did, but it was more fun seeing your character or your clothes show up in, like, a fashion magazine rather than opening up the game and seeing, oh wow, 10 people liked my post. You know what I mean? It was so much fun having a specific customer that I just fucking despise, seeing them walk through the door and having them be like, give me an entire outfit, my budget is $20, and you give them the fuggliest outfit imaginable and they will still pay you because you are that shit. It was like having the drama of Tomodachi Life, but with like villagers that you hate in Animal Crossing. You all know that was a thing. Except you are hot shit, and everyone knew you were hot shit and they couldn't touch you. And I don't get that vibe from Sophia's new game. There's a lot of other games that are by different studios that are trying to achieve that Style Savvy vibe. But again, they're mostly about the fashion and the photos and being a star. But I want to be a snobby, successful businesswoman who can't be questioned on her choices. I want to give people pretty and ugly outfits knowing that they can't complain because I'm a designer. I don't know, man. When it comes to games like this, which I guess can only be described as quote unquote girly games, because I feel like they're just something different about them than your typical cozy game, but I don't want to call them girly games, you know what I mean? Because they're not just for girls. But I guess people know them as girly games, so I'm just gonna call them girly games for now. There was just something so special about these types of games that I feel like most games that try to give off that style savviness is like just in it for the money and the slop. And I feel like business management games are poppin' nowadays, right? So I feel like it is a good time to, give us something like this, maybe. I don't know. I mean, hell, if there's any indie dev out there that's trying to do this, I will happily hit me up. I do social media advertising. I will happily do it for you. But anyway, before this becomes another video of me screaming at the top of my lungs about how much I hate Fashion Dreamer, I think we need a speedrun, some honorable mentions for this little category. I asked some of my friends their thoughts on some games they'd want to see a comeback that are kind of stuck on the 3DS, and some of the answers I got were kind of interesting and I never thought about, so let's go. One of my friends, Halo, said Pilot Wings, or just any type of me game, right? And he was basically saying that he wishes Nintendo would focus more on me games again. And I feel like Tomodachi and maybe the Miitopia remake are sort of an indicator that they still definitely think about me games. But the whole approach with me's in Pilot Wings and Woohoo Island is just super cool. And I actually had this thought prior because I was playing the Crew Motorfest, which takes place in Hawaii, and you can fly a plane, and it just gave me that Wii Sports Resort vibes to it. One of my other friends, Tipic, said Kirby. I can't remember which specific Kirby game he said, but I kind of think that the Kirby 3DS games would make a good 3DS bundle. I think Nate the Hate actually said that we're getting a Planet Robobot port or remake. I don't really remember, but I think that's in there somewhere. I also think Majora's Mask 3D as an HD remaster would be pretty cool with tweaked controls. Same with Ocarina of Time. And also, this is kind of out of nowhere, but the Mamegoma games, these were Japan-only Tamagotchi-style games for these cute little seals. And again, I just need more silly, goofy games like these to come back. Anyway, that is kind of all I got. That's all I got brain power wise, I think. So thank you so much for watching this video. As I'm recording this, I currently have 9,300 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy to me. So thank you guys so much. If you were drawing while watching this video, I hope your drawing turned out good. If you were eating, I hope your dinner turned out good, or your food, not specifically your dinner. I hope your food was fantastic. And if you were doing chores, I hope you got your chores done. I will see you next week for another video. Bye bye!